And now it's time for No Fence Riding, sponsored by the Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for No Fence Riding. The concept is simple. I have a couple statements for our esteemed panel, and they must choose which side of the fence they're on. And let's kick things off with what I thought was the most interesting storyline in the early part of this week. NFL player podcasts have gone too far. Now, I don't want to direct this specifically at Micah Parsons. In fact, you could argue it was a great strategy in his scenario to get in his opponent's heads. So, and I don't want this to be misconstrued as, saying players should not be in the media sphere. But for a team captain, especially on the Eagles, to decide, let's go on a division rivals podcast and laugh at one of his own guys and actually talk about how he could turn a season around, what are we doing here? Mac, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a joke. And it happened in the offseason in January when Jordan Love and Micah Parsons were hamming it up on a podcast, like 36 minutes after the Packers ran the Cowboys out of the playoffs, 100-5. There's too many podcasts. The whole genre has been flooded, and it's just saturated. And the power of Draymond Green's podcast, when he was doing that, when he was the first one to do it, has been completely, just completely diluted with everybody now taken behind a microphone. Which brings me to this. Make sure to check out my podcast. Thanks.
I was waiting. I knew it was coming. I was like, Mac's going to come through.
Just a layup.
Listen, here's the thing. I would like them, but I will say this. A lot of these podcasts show why there is a profession at this and why we have our jobs. Because the fact that they're doing it, I have no problem with.
Right.
The way they execute sometimes is ridiculous. I cannot tell you the number of former Cowboys who I have had conversations with about Micah Parsons' podcast. And it is not complimentary. There are some things that should stay in the locker room, and they're not. And that's the problem. With a little bit more skill, a little bit more nuance, some of these things might be palatable. Listen, by and large, what the Kelce brothers do, it's entertaining. And what Draymond did was entertaining. But you're right. The more people have glommed on to trying to make a few extra bucks, it has exposed some issues in some locker rooms.
Mike, do you dissent, or are you which side of the fence are you on this one?
They don't bother me. They really don't bother me because if they're not good at it, people don't watch them. If they are good at it, people do. Micah's pretty good at it. The Kelce brothers are really good at it. Those ones get watched. The ones that aren't very good don't get viewership. Same as all of us. If we suck at our jobs, people don't tune in.
Mike,
it is what it is.
If Micah Parsons was a linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts or Jacksonville Jaguars,
no,
would any of us be saying, or anybody anywhere be saying, yeah, he's pretty good at it?
Well,
he could be good at it.
It's his personality that makes him good at it. It's not the star on his helmet that makes him good at it. He's entertaining. He gets good guests, and part of that's probably baked into being the fact that he's got the star on his helmet.
No
but
doubt.
But he gets good guests. He gets people on there that are interesting, that are entertaining, even though it may not be helpful to the bottom line of winning football games. It's interesting to see him and Jordan Love chopping it up 2 weeks after they played against each other in the playoffs. It may not be smart, but it is interesting, and that's why people watch.
I was going to say, all right, quickly, let's move on to statement number 2 here. I'm going to say this. Major League Baseball finally got their postseason right. It's been under fire over the last couple seasons because some of the top seeds haven't done well, and I understand this feeling of let's reward teams for a 162-game schedule, but more teams, more excitement, give them a chance to survive a one-game playoff in the wild card. It has just felt better this year. Mac, your thought?
I agree. I think Major League Baseball was the last one to figure out that the best way to cash in on the postseason was to just have more teams. It's followed the same path as the hockey, NHL, the NBA, and certainly the NFL, where just have more teams and more postseason games, have more games that matter. And so, unfortunately, the consequences, 162-game regular season is now even further devalued. But in terms of a postseason, and I can speak this having covered the Rangers last season,